Hello, it looks like I'm live. So this is my first live stream. I'm just doing it really to figure out what it is before I collect more subscribers. So the first thing that I want to say is thank you for being here. Please like, share, subscribe, and shop Shana at alia.com. There will be a link below. Also, you can sign up for readings with me. Uh, and I do mainly birth chart readings at this point. But we can also discuss how the transits are affecting you during or when we're having that reading, if that's a specific question that you have. I also create art. For example, I do resin art, purposeful resin art. So I put crystals in. I actually dry these flowers myself. And then I also, in this particular one, I have layers of amethyst and clear quartz. It's not as shiny as I usually like. It was the first time I tried this mold. But anyway, that's not what this is about. So I'm going to put that down. Um, so I wanted also to take a quick second and just let you guys know where I've been. I have been sick since I made my last video, basically, or 2 days after. As soon as Venus went into its shadow period and the last eclipse um, s- went through its progression, I have been struggling with my health. And I'm telling you that because it will be important probably for later shows because I will go back and talk about this. This is an ongoing thing for me. And yeah, and it's interesting because this particular, I guess, round of health issues has been, I've finally found a way to manage them. And it's interesting because it is basically going back to things that I have used before now. So that's a retrograde for you. Venus officially goes into retrograde today, but there is a shadow period before that. And also, my health stuff is also activated by the eclipse. So I just had a lot going on. Um, Also, Venus is going retrograde in Capricorn, and Capricorn is my ascendant, which means that it affects me as a whole person. So, ascendant, I describe as your being from inside out. Your sun sign is from your outside in. And so my ascendant is the place where Venus is going retrograde, and it also signifies my body. And I think that's part of why these patterns emerge during these time periods. And that's really what led me to start studying this. There's two reasons. The first was an unlimited amount of career choices because I have the potential to do a lot, like every one of you. um, and for me, potential means like anything and everything. It's very expansive. So I started studying astrology to find out where my energy is most supported. And I also started studying it because I have had very interesting health issues. I'm okay, but it's just been a struggle and it comes in waves and patterns. And so it made sense to study something that already had data collected instead of just having to continue to collect my own data, which I'm still doing. But it's really actually kind of helped. So I can start seeing the patterns from a different perspective. So, anyway, that's where I've been. I probably will not wait this long to come back. I probably will not wait until I feel better, for example, because I think part of my lesson during this last period it was that I can still do this work even if I don't feel like 100% like perfect. It's probably something that's obvious to other people, but it's definitely not obvious to me. So yeah, that's probably another takeaway. So I probably won't spend as much time the next time I don't feel well, not speaking with you guys, or at least leaving some type of clue as to what's coming up. And just be okay with the idea that you guys are here because you're interested in the knowledge and that I don't have to look or sound or be perfect in order for this to be effective. So Cool. All right. Let's see. So Venus retrograde. So first of all, I don't know how many of you know what a retrograde is in astrology. So I'll go over that a little bit first. A retrograde is basically you'll hear it talked about. The most generic way that it's discussed is a planet moving backwards through the zodiac. Um, and what I want you to know, just because it's a point of contention between astronomy and astrology, is that retrogrades don't actually mean that planets are going backwards um, in the sky, like from a vantage point other than Earth. But it's an optical illusion for those of us humans that are on Earth, and that's what it looks like. And it still represents a very clear pattern throughout history of things. So that is why the term is retrograde. It literally means that it's going back over the planet or the places that it has already been. Um, and the easiest way to describe it is going backwards. But I do want to put out that plug because I like to be very clear with you guys so that you have a handle on what is actually happening. The planet is not literally going backwards, but for all intents and purposes, and from our perspective on Earth, that is how the community of astrologers describe it because that's the easiest way to define how it functions and also what's happening in an optical illusion kind of way. So that's a retrograde. What normally happens during retrograde periods, and the retrograde that you normally hear the most about probably is Mercury. So retrograde periods really are defined by the planet and the place in the zodiac that they're going through in retrograde. Um, and when a planet goes retrograde, it usually means that there will be things that need to be revisited. So it'll be an opportunity to revisit, revise. It also is not a good time to initiate anything because basically, like if you're thinking of like a bow and arrow, you don't want to release the bow while it's being pulled back if you want it to go far. So think about the retrograde as like the planet has slowed down. So instead of the arrow going out, you are pulling the arrow back in. It is slowing down. You're pulling it back. If you release it too early, then it won't actually go as fast and where you want it to go. It's kind of how a retrograde works. It's pulling back of the planet, and then the planet will station and go after the retrograde is over. And the slowing down and the tension that's created is why retrogrades get talked about so much because again, you don't want to initiate anything while it's backing up, right? Like you don't want to initiate anything while it's slowing down, because that means that what you're initiating, unless it's specific to that energy, but most people don't utilize that energy in that way. Um, will be less likely to be clear, follow through have good follow through. It might, yeah, it's just not really a good idea. So, one of the big things that I know I mentioned before is that you don't really want to, for example, have any cosmetic surgery during a Venus retrograde. I do include shadow periods in this for myself personally because I basically, like, if you look at my chart, almost all my energies in Venus sign, Libra. So, for me personally, I take Venus very seriously as a planet and also Libra very seriously as a sign. Um, but I generally say that you just don't, if you can help it, you don't want to schedule any type of real physical change, especially something that involves cutting, sticking, pricking. It's just not a good idea. If I don't include the shadow period, then Venus retrograde ends on January the 29th, which it still does with the shadow. But if you want to be super safe, then I wouldn't schedule anything until after March the 3rd. So a shadow period is basically think of it like a vacuum. Okay, so when the planets are going through the zodiac and they're going in forward motion, they're sucking things up or they're activating things. And then when you're vacuuming, when you pull back, which is the retrograde, it's going to go back over the section that it just sucked up the dirt, but it's going to get what's coming from this direction, what maybe has been left over. And then after it stations and goes back direct, it'll go back over that spot again. Whereas when a planet is moving through the zodiac, it only goes over one spot one time, so it's not as intense of a concentration and the energy is being moved. And also, using that metaphor, a lot more things get worked out or cleaned up or pulled apart during the three times that you basically go over the same area. Um, so just heads up for that. Also, Venus during its retrograde will be hitting Pluto three times. Um, so Venus is basically the ruler of beauty. Venus is very interested in harmony. Venus is very loves the arts. Is very interested in justice, like social justice, especially anything legal. But normally the associations are strongly like harmonious, social, balance. Uh, a lot of people with strong Libra energy make great lawyers, they make great mediators, they make great artists, they make great dancers, teachers, anything in the arts, teachers of anything in the arts. And they also, oh yeah, I just forgot what I was saying. Venus people, people with strong Venus. Oh, there's something important, but I can't remember, and it's okay. All right. So Pluto signifies, Pluto is one of the planets that astrologers even sort of get tensed up about just because Pluto is the planet of death and transformation. Part of the reason of that is that Pluto stays in the same place for longer. So, just like with that vacuum metaphor, if you're leaving a vacuum in the same spot, you might ruin your carpet if you leave it there for too long because it literally will pull up everything and you might even see like what's underneath even the fibers of the carpet if you're using it on carpet and you just let it sit there and spin and spin and pull and pull. That's basically what Pluto does, and that's part of the reason why it gets such a tense rep from most people who study astrology. Um, I personally find Pluto it is a very intense planet. It's part of my stellium, so all that energy in Venus is also exactly conjunct with, which means it's exactly like in the same spot as my sun and Saturn. So it's a really ridiculous placement for me. So I have a lot of Venus Pluto just in my natal chart, and then anytime that anything happens, it's like lighting up a Christmas tree. So I have a lot of examples of Venus Pluto in my life. Most people don't, so don't get nervous because most people don't have usually such overt manifestations and most people don't usually have the Pluto energy activated as much as I do. So anything that I tell you about Pluto or like any examples that I give you, they're probably going to seem pretty intense, but don't freak out because it's not intended to scare you. It's intended to like prepare you and just kind of help you not get sideswiped by things that I've gotten sideswiped by. Um, and Pluto is really very interested in the truth. So basically, it doesn't matter how much you try to like work your way around it. Eventually, when Pluto hits something, the truth is coming out, whether it's about your health, relationship, families, um, even the news, the media. Some you can see the transits there. Or, Um, and religious experience, I mean, just like everything, you find out what the truth is when Pluto is activated, and that also is part of what creates this like death and rebirth cycle, because once something is brought up to the light and people can see it, people can change it. And so it's a very, in my opinion, it's very revolutionary energy. But it's real, I mean, it's tough. It makes you, it basically lets you figure out how much you can handle at one time. It will test you. But, it's there to serve as a reminder, and a really big cleanup crew for our energy in this lifetime to make sure that we are um, being truthful and getting to the bottom of of whatever we're dealing with. Uh, so Pluto Venus, some examples of what that looks like is, I'm going to use a lot of family examples because Christmas is coming up, and there, like, literally, Venus is going exact with Pluto on Christmas Eve into Christmas Day, depending on where you live. And what I see this meaning is, and it's in Capricorn. So, Capricorn is a planet that is related to structure, organization, uh, old patriarchal systems, really. Um, it doesn't necessarily have to be that, but that's what it represents, like in the United States of America, is like the patriarchy, what systems have been put in place, um, what structures we're working within. So it's sort of like a throwback sign, and it is also associated with basically structure, boundaries. It makes you set boundaries. Saturn makes you have structure. It's a slow planet, but it's also a planet that, when you take your time building the structure, then the structure will last for a very long time. It will be worth the effort. And so that's also part of Capricorn. A Capricorn sign really slows things down. It's a very, like, very strict parenting, mostly in a loving way, depending on how it shows up in your chart. The whole idea is for all of us to be a love note from the universe, but sometimes it doesn't feel that way. Um, and so having Venus and Pluto together in Capricorn during Christmas means that there's a lot of potential for power struggles, and a lot, like, it is very, very, very likely that secrets within the family that you choose for yourself, will be revealed. Death and rebirth. So you might actually literally have relationships that maybe get revived, and maybe don't serve you right now, and you may be able to revisit a few Christmases later. So when I say death, don't freak out. Like, death is is probably overstated in our society as like something you should be freaked out about, but it's not. It means endings. Like in any sort of ancient stories or cultures or anything, it means endings. You have to have endings in order to have beginnings, or you would make room for like the new babies that are being made on Earth, because we would all never end. Um, so anyway, endings aren't bad. Death is not bad in this situation. Death is just allowing something to conclude so that something else can start, or allowing something to conclude so that it can be reorganized. Um, so, when you are with your family and friends, if you are during the holidays, I tend to sometimes avoid that. But when you're with your family and friends, I just want you to be mindful that you want to enter this, like, really, it's already a tense period, at least in the United States, because we still have COVID going on. It's still a very political thing that's happening. Um, it's just an overall climate of or culture, and you will be better served going into the time that you are going into with your loved ones this holiday season with the and mentality. So you can both have different opinions and still come together and say that you want the best for everyone. You can have power struggles and still love the person. You can set boundaries that hurt for a little while, maybe, but that are also love. So anything that you can use I think I heard one of my clients even talk about it as like and consciousness, then it will serve you much better because Venus also is going to be empowered by the harmony that you choose to create. And is a harmonious word. It is very harmonious, especially right now. And so, when you're having also it's gonna be really intense, like, it's just gonna be intense because this isn't the only thing happening, in the patterns of the sky, or however you want to say astrology works. Um, the other thing that's going to be happening, well, there's just a lot happening, and all you really need to know for this particular video is that, you just want to make sure that while, your relationships are like the structures, literal interpretation of this would be the structures of your relationships are going to be revisited during that time. They're going to be torn down. And not all of them, but like some of them will if they need to be. And then hopefully they will start to rebuild. And everyone's going to be feeling this intensely. So again, try to be as gracious as you possibly can, but while I'm saying that, I don't always say be assertive, but you need like part of your lesson with Pluto, Capricorn, and Venus is to make sure that you lovingly and compassionately establish your boundaries. If you don't, then you will be revisiting these lessons again. um and if you're already going into something looking for the lesson, then it's easier to integrate into your life, and it saves a lot of pain for a lot of people. If you go in knowing that everyone's going to be feeling this intensity, literally your biggest gift to your family could be like you saying I love you and I really can't be here for this part, or and I would prefer it if we did not talk about this particular thing. So any way that you can create and keep harmony will be good, but it's really delicate because if you also try to cover up the truth, now this is like actual truth and not just the perspective that you have on, let's say, like current events. Okay, so be very careful with your definition of truth because perspective is not truth all the time. Your perspective, my perspective, that's not necessarily truth. So just be clear. Don't use this as like a way to try to like hammer your ideas into someone else's head because that's not going to work for you here. Um, the truth will be it's going to be something that is very easily like seen. It's very easily visible, and it will be seen by everyone involved from a similar perspective. Probably they might not have the same opinion about it, but it will be from a similar perspective. So, Christmas, your best gift to yourself and your family is the word and and harmony and you just really, I wouldn't say avoid power. Well, I would always avoid power struggles, but you know, see how delicately you can reconstruct something without losing your footing. So again, it's kind of a delicate line to balance, but it's a great practice. Like this Christmas is a great practice for setting a great foundation for your family. Because if you think about it, you're having this opportunity to go ahead and take care of business. If you go ahead and set this up in a loving, harmonious, and consciousness kind of way, then your gift to your family and your friends, or to yourself even, will be a structure and a foundation because you're doing it in Capricorn that will hold this and harmonious love consciousness moving forward. Um, so that's my biggest thing to tell you about Venus retrograde right now for Christmas. Um, and the other thing that I wanted to do is give you an example uh, of Venus Venus Pluto, like in my birth chart. This is a very literal example. It's not necessarily exactly what I've been talking about, because it can represent a lot of things. I just think for the holidays, you guys need to be the most prepared going into it, since you'll be seeing people that maybe you don't see that often, or maybe you don't really feel comfortable seeing, but you do it out of obligation. Anyway, I just wanted to cover those things, but um, just an example of Venus Pluto, like in my birth chart, which is very intense. Again, most people don't have this happen, but it gives you a good idea of how it works. So I was born with this, and I've thought about this a lot actually recently. I was born with this indescribable love for dance. And I say it's indescribable because I grew up in a family that cherished music, but it was really centered around religion. And the religion that I was raised in, dancing wasn't bad, but it also wasn't something that was part of our culture. So there was singing, there was piano, there's always music, and I love music. Um, but there was never dancing. And so I don't know where and how this got downloaded into me, but I have loved taking a dance class and the act of dancing in an organized way and wearing a pretty tutu and all the things, since I can remember, like literally probably before I have words, I can tell you that I love dance. I remember going to dance class when I was 2 years old or 3 years old maybe, but I think it might have been, no, it was three. So I even have memories related to like the fact that I loved it. And it's just so it's bizarre to me because I don't know where that came from. Even like the influences on TV and stuff, like it wasn't the biggest dance thing that I ever came in contact with that I'm aware of. Well, I did see Mary Poppins and everything, but I wouldn't consider that there is dancing, but it wasn't a dance focused movie. Um, my biggest exposure, I think, even came later. So I can't even tell you where it came from. Like I didn't go to a ballet that I know of or anything. I was just born that way. So literally Venus in her ruling sign of Libra, um, it, and Saturn, just for those of you who are nerds. I was born into loving dance. But so the love of dance has been a gift my whole life. It has literally saved my life at least a couple of times, I think. Well, it just has in different ways. But I was born with this inexplicable, inex, I can tell this don't feel well, inexplainable, like unexplainable love for dance. And I always wanted to be a dancer and I always wanted to be a good dancer because I love to be good at everything that I do and I loved it. But I was born literally with my feet turned in. And so if those of you who don't know anything about being a dancer, like if you want to be a dancer, basically one, especially when I was younger, even now, one of the things that you must have is the ability to turn your feet out so that you can do like first position, third position, fourth position, all the things. Your legs have to be turned out. I was born with love of dance and my legs turned in so much that I had to wear braces when I was younger. And my my parents like they tell me how much they hated the process of making me have to wear these braces. I don't remember wearing them. I just remember the really long shoestrings, and I think that has something to do with braces. But they would literally, I would have to sleep with so that my legs could start turning out, with my feet in braces, and then eventually like in these ties. I think. Um, Again, I don't really remember a lot of that, and then so here I am as a child, like trying to trying to be a dancer with like the most non-dancer thing you can have, um structurally. So like so yeah, structurally. If you're looking at like the full human body, that's typical. So typical structure. Um I still even though like I have a degree in dance, I still have to work on keeping my legs turned out. Like that is just structurally um something that is honestly, I can't it actually kind of feels a little bit like a curse, like giving with two hands, right? Like I love this thing and I would have loved to be this like ballerina. That's really what I wanted. And the third component to that is that I grew up in a small town and the only person there that was teaching was really quite a hack at teaching. She just loved to teach. She just loved to like have little girls learn the positions, but not actually teach them. So I didn't even hear the word turnout until I was 16. And by then, everyone who's ever taken dance class or has a child in dance class knows it's too late. It's too late by the time you're 16, maybe 14 is when I heard it. So for 14 years, thinking that I was like good at dance, I sucked at it. I loved it, but I sucked at it. And I had not even started working on my structure. That's a nod to Saturn. So anyway, um, Pluto Venus is basically this like Venus is like this joy that I get from dancing, from watching dance. That's a gift. That's just a gift. People have the gift of enjoyment of things, and mine just happens to be dance. And then Pluto is like, yeah, so you're going to love it, but it's going to you're going to have to literally transform your legs. Like, literally transform them. I even had someone from the Shriners Club in that area come up to me one time because I still had like pigeon toed. I don't know why I wasn't teased about it, but anyway, um, a guy came up to me and was like, "Hey, we would pay for surgery to break your hips and fix your like your hip problem." He didn't even know I wanted to be a dancer. He was just like, "Hey, I can see like your legs are turned in. Um, and we're willing to like completely break your hips and pay for the surgery so that you can have like normal walking ability." Like that's how pronounced it was. And also Pluto, it was like a Pluto request because it was basically like, yeah, we're gonna like kill what you got inside and then restructure it so that you could have something new. I did not go for that because then I would have to be out of school for a year and like anyway, I don't know that that would have worked out that well during that time period because also we didn't have all the technology that we do now. Um, but anyway, yeah, so that is my very literal Pluto, Venus, and I had to add Saturn in there because I can't talk about it without Saturn because they're all like just hanging out together. Um, Saturn, way that it shows up in my personal birth chart. Again, I don't think I've ever met anyone with this same conjunction in the same spot. So like nobody needs to worry if your kids have Venus Pluto, if they're born with that conjunct just means together in the same spot um in your chart. That doesn't mean that they're going to have this thing, right? Um but I do. And when you look at my chart overall, that's what leads me here to help you guys. So again, it hurts. It sucks, honestly, but it's still, I don't know, it still brings me new life. So anyway, that is a literal Venus Pluto conjunction example. And again, I just want to remind you that Pluto loves the truth, so I would not recommend lying or even trying to deceive anyone. You are allowed to say, I don't want to talk about this and set boundaries. You are allowed to say, do not feel safe sharing my opinion. You could set a boundary, but I definitely would not try to lie right now if you care about your relationships. Um, okay, and then this last Venus retrograde thing is last year and wait, yeah, 2020. My niece uh, was my sister-in-law was pregnant with my niece. She came early. She came either right before during that Venus retrograde during that time. So that was the last Venus retrograde. I did not do this on purpose. It just happened and it's so perfect. Um, I had to go there for several weeks. I didn't have to, but I did. I went and like helped my brother with my nephew Uriah, who I love, and stay with them for several weeks. And really, literally, the stars aligned because my job was with the cruise line, and they had to lay me off, and then the government was helping us all out with some monetary support. So I literally was able to go help them during this time. I don't know what would have happened if I couldn't have done that. But anyway, so I'm very grateful. Um, but during that time, it was revisiting relationships, right? Like relations with my brother. It was going back and really we had to hammer out a lot of well, we didn't have to, but we were able to hammer out a lot of stuff. My brother and I, we didn't have the most peaceful upbringing experience, to say the least. Um, and my my niece came early, and she came during a retrograde period, and this upcoming week, so like Venus will go exact um, on the 19th, which is today, I guess. Uh, I will be going in 1 week from now to stay with them and actually help take care of them again. So my youngest niece, Mabel, and her brother, who's older than her, Uriah, I'm going back to where I was the last time Venus was in retrograde and taking care of them in the same place, doing the same stuff for a week during Venus retrograde. Like, that's very literal. Like, going to see Mabel during a Venus retrograde will probably always be a thing. It'll be interesting, to say the least, to see how that unfolds over our lifetimes. So that was the other personal example of like revisiting something during a retrograde. Again, I did not plan it that way. It just is interesting that it happened to all correspond. Um, all right. Okay, I think that's everything. So if you liked this video, if you want to share, subscribe, go to my website. I have been making little fairy orbs so my clients can take, they've got chips in them. This one's aquamarine and citrine. And then, of course, some live dried flowers because that's my jam. Uh, so these are designed to like go in your pocket or your purse or something discreet that you can hold in your hand so that if you're at work and you need some extra support for one of your chakras or your intentions, or you need to actually like you want to put some intention or prayer, however you want to think about that. Concentrated energy, if you want to channel that into the ball, if you want to set up a subconscious like representation for yourself. Like every time I look at this, I think of how much um, I am loved or something. Every time I touch it, I remember I'm loved or prosperity or whatever. That's what I'm creating. So visit my store and pick up one and pick up one for a friend because I kind of got addicted to it. And now I think it has a purpose and a place in this work, at least for now. They are durable. They are UV ray proof, which means that they won't turn colors in the sun. Um, I will put on this channel when I think about it. I did an experiment. I actually took one of my larger, I don't have it up here, but this like large resin tray, it's beautiful, that I made, and I set it outside for like a whole lunar cycle, and nothing bad happened to it. It like is completely resistant. It's so durable. It's crazy. So I have to show you guys that. Um, so anyway, Shana at Alia.com, also on Etsy, and then book a reading with me because I like to do those. Those are so much fun. And comment below with any of the things that you have, any stories or examples that you have. I would love to see them and read them. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Happy holidays.